customer marketing is one side of the coin, but often, and more often than we think, there's another side to the coin. Right, Michele?
Absolutely, Sascha. And by the way, marketing is a great side of the coin. But the reality is that organizations are constantly looking to minimize the loss of money due to fraudulent behavior. There are so many different types of fraud given out there, and the list is growing given the continuing growing digital channels and opportunities that these fraudsters can do. So enabling those fraud investigators and analysts to efficiently investigate those fraud cases across their business lines is extremely important. We have a new product coming out later this year that will address this use case called SAS Visual Investigator. Ryan Schmiede last night gave you a sneak preview of some of those capabilities, and I'm happy to have Dan Tamburro with us here this morning to dive into a little bit more detail of the life of a fraud investigator or an analyst. So Dan, welcome.
Thanks, Michele.
All right, so what do we got going on?
I want you to imagine that you've met a woman and she tells you she had her car stolen.
Oh, well, that's unfortunate.
Right, naturally you're going to feel bad for her, right?
Yeah.
Well, like with most things, the more details you learn, the better you know the whole story. And that's what it's like in the life of a fraud investigator. What you're looking at here is SAS Visual Investigator. And one of the reasons we built SAS Visual Investigator is to get the most important information to the appropriate investigator in a timely manner. We have Visual Investigator set up here. It's a mock-up of a online automotive insurance company. And what I see here is a queue of alerted work items for auto claims. What I want you to notice is if I switch queues over to the medical provider queue, the columns will change and also the summary information at the bottom of the screen will change as well. And that's because we have an upstream analytic process called a strategy, and it figures out which investigator to give the alerts to, and more importantly, the most important details display for that type of alert. I also want you to note, even within a queue, if I go back to the auto claims queue and I switch to a different alert, it's also sensitive to the alert type within a queue. So the loss type just changed, so therefore I'm going to get a different summary at the bottom of the screen.
So what about that woman who had her car stolen?
Right, about her.
Yeah.
So we can see that she filed a claim, that's for sure. But there's other interesting information. If you look at the scorecard at the bottom left of the screen, you can see that she never filed a police report, took several days to report things, and also the car was burned after it was stolen. As an investigator, the thing that's real suspicious to me is that the policy was changed right before the claim took place. So let's look at that in more detail. Let's hop over to the policy. And sure enough, I can see the deductible was reduced to $100 right before the claim was filed. So this is really suspicious.
Definitely.
And my guess is she's going to be part of a claims fraud investigation, maybe get a visit from law enforcement, or maybe both.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so you talked about the upstream analytics helping reveal that suspicious behavior and how strategies get that relevant information to the right investigator. But what happens if there's other information that I need in my investigation that I don't see apparently on the screen?
Right, right. So Visual Investigator will help with that too. So if you saw Visual Investigator last night, this is something you didn't see. So here's detailed information about that claimant. If I have the right privileges as an end user or an IT person, I can go into the administrative interface. And here I can do several things. I can see information about tables and columns. I can see information about entities, different document types, even the assets and the UI associated with those document types. Another thing I can do in here is actually see pages that are in the application. So I think we were looking at an individual entity. Let's bring up that page. Let's enhance this page a bit for my next investigation. Let's say I'm going to add a lot to this screen, so let's do a 3-column display. Maybe throw a network on here.
Okay, so there's lots of flexibility in building out that page how you want as well.
Yeah, you can kind of experiment a bit, see how things lay out, move things around.
Very straightforward.
And let's say I've done these type of investigation a lot, and I keep finding myself having to find marital status as an important factor in the investigation. So let's add that field as well.
Okay.
Save that out, go back to the investigation interface. Let's see how we did.
I think that's something I could even use.
Maybe so.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. Let's see how we did twice. How about that? Go in here again. And voila.
There it is. Yeah. Excellent. So very straightforward. Now, we only have a couple of minutes left. If there's anything else that you could share with folks around SAS Visual Investigator?
Well, I'd love to do that. If there's only a minute left, there's one thing I definitely want to do. I want to revisit that concept of a workbook. If you were here last night, you heard about that. We didn't have a lot of time, so we didn't show you all the visualizations in there. So I want to show you some things you didn't see last night. I'm going to switch over to the provider queue. And just to remind you, a workbook is a way that I can keep track of my investigation, and then as I discover things, I can save them at a point in time. So what I'm going to do is this mini network at the bottom of the screen, I'm going to grab all the elements off of that network, and I'm going to start up a new worksheet. So I may want to explore the network further. I may actually want to view things in a different way. In my opinion, the flipping of views within the workbook is one of the most powerful things. So I have these same data elements. I've explored them. I'm going to switch views. For example, I may want to see the underlying detail data. Or where it's relevant, see things on a map. Possibly look at time-sensitive things on a timeline view. And then you can imagine that as I investigate, I might discover things outside of the system, right? So maybe I want to put some information into the system that doesn't already exist there. So for example, in the network, I can add a node. And then I can link that information into the network. So I've just scratched the surface on what you can do in workbooks, but I hope it gives you an idea of what a powerful tool the workbook is to an investigator.
Yeah, I think it's extremely powerful, and I think it's going to help both fraud investigators and those analysts not only be more efficient in their activities in doing these cases, but also more effective. So absolutely. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the demoers for all their great work here.
Yes, Michele, we hope that this whirlwind tour of demos has sparked some interest in our audience to explore this week during the conference. Make sure you check your program for papers that will provide you with lots of details on these products and others that are of your interest.
And make sure you come down to the quad, ask us questions, find out more details. And also, if you want to try out some of these products in our Catalyst Cafe. We thank you for your attention this morning, and we hope you have an awesome conference. Thank you.